Hi, everyone.
Greetings. We're in 1 Corinthians chapter 3, today looking at verses 5 to 9. And I'll read it at first from the ESV, and Vivian's also got the New World Translation. Mm-hmm. What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants, through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building.
Okay, mine has a few differences. What then is Apollos? Yes, what is Paul? Ministers. Yours said servants. Through whom you became believers, just as the Lord granted each one. I planted, Apollos watered, but God kept making it grow, so that neither is the one who plants anything, nor is the one who waters, but God who makes it grow. Now the one who plants and the one who waters are one, but each person will receive his own reward, according to his own work. For we are God's fellow workers. We are God's field under cultivation, God's building.
Does it say we or you?
Oh, you. You are God's field under cultivation, God's building. Excuse me, sorry. Yours said you as well.
Yeah, so Paul's point is you're looking at the gifts in men in the wrong way. You're lining up behind your favorite teacher, whether it be Cephas or the two mentioned here, Paul and Apollos. Mm-hmm. You're lining up behind them as if they're rivals for affections and for loyalty, when the truth is they're all of these men are gifts in men, and they have different gifts. Well, Paul, for instance, is a missionary, which is essentially saying that's what an apostle is. It's one sent, right? A missionary is one sent for a specific purpose.
And Apollos is a teacher. He's watering what Paul planted.
Yeah, so if Paul wanted to, he could simply say, well, I planted the church in Corinth, therefore you should be loyal to me and forget about these other guys. No, but he realizes his gift is different than Apollos' gift.
And both are needed.
And Cephas' gift. All are needed, yeah.
Yeah, and so that's, in that sense, they are one. But they don't have the same assignment, the same job.
Yeah.
And the assigner is God. It's God who gives the gifting, and it's God who makes the growth, not them.
That's right. And he makes the point that he and Apollos are one. That is, they have the same intention, and they know each other's gifts, and they work. They don't work together, though. That's a big difference, which the Watchtower's view of ministers or servants is. You have a collective servant, the faithful and discreet slave, a collective or a class. They work as individuals, and that's been God's pattern throughout the ages. He raises up individuals. They don't even necessarily work together, let alone in consort. They're not being organized by some governing body back in Jerusalem. The Spirit is raising them up. Christ is assigning them where he wants them to go. So that we have no record of Apollos and Paul ever working together, but they're all blessing the churches.
Yeah. So I think even the last verse about the field and the building are good illustrations of how the church works, because when you plant seeds, you have lots of different plants. And when you make a structure, a building, you have bricks, individual bricks. But together they make the field or the plot, garden, and together they make the structure, the building. They're all needed.
Yeah.
But they're not necessarily the same.
Then you begin to think, when you consider that they believe in a collective servant class, that's the insidious beginning of the loyalty test, which is you're either loyal to that class or you're not. Whereas there's no cry here, Paul or Apollos or Cephas are saying, be loyal to me.
Yeah.
They're individuals all serving the same function, which is to bless Christ's church and to build Christ's church. To mix the metaphors here, to water what's already been planted, the field idea, like Matthew 13, the parable of the sower, And the building idea, which Paul builds on elsewhere, and the body idea too, which is right in this letter, right?
Yeah.
These are all metaphors about the necessity of all of these parts, all of these gifts in men playing the roles that they were gifted to play.
And God being the highest, the one that you're supposed to be looking to, not to the different individual parts as your authority. Your loyalty is to God, and you watch what God is doing.
Yeah. In Leon Morris's commentary, he has this to say about this passage. Ministers translates diakonoi, a word applied originally to the service of a table waiter. There's the humility. Not a class that you must be loyal to unless you are to be found out of God's favor. Then it came to be used of service generally, and in the New Testament it is often used of the service that Christians should render God. In time it was applied to one of the regular orders of the ministry, the deacons, but this is not an example of that use. It is a word which stresses the lowly character of the service rendered. It accordingly ridicules the tendency to make much of preachers. And of course, nobody makes more of their preachers than the Watchtower does. That's the character of cults in general. Even though they might not call them a priesthood, that's in effect what you're asked to do, to deference to a priesthood. It is a word which stresses the lowly character of the service rendered. It accordingly ridicules the tendency to make much of preachers who would set servants on pedestals. Good question. The real work was done by God, as by whom, which is really through whom, shows. Paul and Apollos are nothing more than instruments through whom he, that is God, does his work. These ministers could work only as the Lord gave to them. Then he adds to that, the attention of the Corinthians should have been fastened on God, who alone effects all spiritual work, and not on his unimportant instruments. A second lesson here is that there is an essential unity between planter and waterer. Obviously, the work of neither can be successful without that of the other. So far from himself and Apollos being rivals, Paul maintains that they are one. This does not mean that they have not made distinctive contributions. Whereas the uniformity is, if you're in the cult, the uniformity
Everyone doing the same thing.
is the thing that proves that you're one, right? That's not the case in the church.
You all play a part in the growth of the church.
Yeah. What are our links?
We're linking to a video that discusses the honoring of God, of Christ's gifts in men, and the playlist, Why the Org Will Fall and the Church Will Stand.
Yeah, that video is based on Ephesians 4, where we have that phrase, gifts in men. And we see the variety of those gifts. See you next time.
Bye.